Okay, so we're going to sketch a graph of a polynomial function. So it's going to be those steps that we were talking about. So it'll be very exciting. Okay, first find the intercepts. So I'm going to find the y-intercept. I do that by finding f of 0, which is going to be negative 2 times 0 plus 3 squared times 0 minus 5. Now that's going to be negative 2 times 9 times negative 5. Negative 2 times negative 5 is 10, so I'm going to get 10 times 9, or 90. That is a pretty big number. That's why I didn't put any graph paper on here, because you just don't know what those numbers are going to be. And sometimes they can get really large or really small very quickly, because even though the degree is not going to be super high on this polynomial, it's still an exponent, right? Okay. The x-intercepts, well, let me write the y-intercept up here. 0, 90. That's the y-intercept. Okay. The x-intercepts, they gave it to us factored. So nice. That's going to be a little bit easier. We're going to have an x-intercept at negative 3, 0. I'll write it as an ordered pair. And we're going to have one at 5, 0. So I know where my x-intercepts are. All right. Oh, I forgot to check for symmetry. I don't think there's going to be symmetry, but let me write someplace. Where can I do that? I'll do it over here. So I'm going to take the function and I'm going to multiply it out. So I'm going to put it in a general form. X squared plus 6x plus 9 times x minus 5. Now we've kind of been avoiding that of multiplying it out. I don't think it's really going to help us here, but you know, I didn't want you to be confused on why am I ignoring the symmetry, you know. So I'll multiply the trinomial times the binomial. That's going to give me what? X cubed, 6x squared, 9x, a minus 5x squared. This is one way to do it. A minus 30x, and a minus 45. So then I get negative 2 times x cubed plus x squared minus 21x minus 45. Okay, if I were to distribute negative 2x cubed minus 2x squared plus 42x plus 90. Kind of nice to see that 90, right? Okay, now that would be f of x in the general form that we've talked about in the past. If you were to find f of negative x, anything with an odd exponent, that's going to change its sign. So it would be 2x cubed, right? But see, this is not an odd exponent, so it would stay the same. This one's odd, so it would change. This one is not odd, so it would stay the same. Okay, doesn't have an x in it. Now, you could go through that and see that if you want. But this is not the opposite. Like, even if I factored out a negative sign, negative 1, I'd have negative 2x cubed. That one's okay, but then I'd have plus 2x squared. So it's not odd. Or it's not even, sorry. It's not odd either, but okay. I'm not even going to check the oddness of it. It's not even, so I don't want to mess with it. I'm tired of messing with that part. Okay, so I pretty much found the symmetry is not going to help me here, is what I'm saying. Okay, kind of a long process for that. But I didn't want to ignore it. Sometimes, you know, if it's symmetric right off the bat, you're going to be like, yeah, okay. And we'll see that later on with some other things. Okay, so we checked for symmetry. We got our x-intercepts. Now we need to do the multiplicity. Okay, so the multiplicity, I've been writing them in green. The multiplicity at negative 3, 0 is 2. And the multiplicity at 5, 0 is 1. So at 2, we know it's going to bounce or touch. And here it's going to cross, and it's not going to snake. It's just going to cross. Okay? All right. So we got the information off that. we're up to step 4, end behavior. Well, nice thing that we did over here. So I'm going to find end behavior. When we multiplied everything out, we got the leading term there. So we know it's odd. We know it's going to go up this way to the left and down to the right. Okay, so we know the end behavior. All right, I think we're ready to sketch the graph. Let's see, I don't want to lose all my information here. Okay, so I'm going to draw something like that. I have one intercept at -3, and I have one at 5. I have the y-intercept. Let me put these in a different color so you can see them better. I have the y-intercept that's way up there at 0.90. So maybe I want to count by, I don't know, 10s or 50s. 50, oops, we'll count this as 50, 100. Well, okay, maybe 25. I don't need to make it too far off the scale. But, well, we'll count by 10s. How's that? All right, let me erase this. Oop. Let me erase this a little bit. Okay, there goes my y-axis. So let's count 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Okay, so anyway, there's a point way up here. Remember, these are just rough sketches. And that's kind of what we have to do because we'd have to have a huge piece of graph paper if we wanted to do something else. Let's see, what else do we do? Are we ready to start? Okay. We know that it's going to come from this part right here. We know it's going to start down. Okay, so it's going to go down. And then what's going to happen when it gets to that -3? It's not going to go on through. It's going to touch. It's going to bounce off there, and then it's going to come up here. We know it's going to go through. We don't know that it's going to turn at that point. It could keep going up even higher, but we don't know exactly. But we know that eventually it's going to start coming back down. And we also know it's going to go through over here. Okay, so that's a very rough sketch of the graph. Are my turning points okay? I've got 2 turning points. The most number of turning points I could have, so my max turning points was 2. And I only have 2, so that's good. Could I find more points in graph? Yeah, I could evaluate like at 1 and at 2 and at 3 and at 4. We kind of think we know what's going on in there. That might be helpful to get, a little bit more accurate graph. But you could spend a lot of time doing these or not so much time. Okay, so mine doesn't look like the book. It's a rough sketch, but it's got the basics in there. Okay, so the end behavior is correct. It's got the right number of turning points, and it's going through the y-axis at the right point. Okay, that's the complicated one where you're putting it all together to sketch a graph. But it's a very good skill to have. So.